Hey guys, welcome back to the Ultimate Beamer Experience. And today I want to talk about how much Scotty Kilmer loves BMWs. Just kidding. As we all know, Scotty Kilmer hates BMWs.
They're also endless money pits.
Every time he mentions the brand, he basically says the same few things. But today, I want to show you why you should not listen to Scotty Kilmer when it comes to BMWs. Truthfully, though, he must love them, because look how often he talks about them. He seems to be making a lot of money, or should I say,
a small fortune
on BMW content. Look how many videos he has about them. Well, bad news does spread easier than good news. In my experience, almost everyone who talks shit about BMWs has never owned one, never driven one, never worked on one, and if they have, they probably didn't know anything about them, and didn't want to know because they'd rather work on domestic and Asian cars. A few years ago, when I told my friends and family that I was planning on buying a BMW, everyone told me that it was a bad idea and that I shouldn't do it. But in hindsight, none of these people had driven one, owned one, worked on one, or knew anything about them. It was all word of mouth. You're probably thinking, you're just mad because someone's talking shit about something that you like, and that you're just defending it blindly. Well, no, because I will admit that BMWs do have some problems, but in my opinion and my situation, the good aspects of owning a BMW vastly outweigh the bad aspects. So don't let him deter your consideration for buying one just yet. Today I want to show you that Scotty Kilmer pretty much has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to BMWs. Alright, it's time to watch some Scotty Kilmer. Let's hear it from the mechanic himself. Let's hear it from the expert mechanic. Okay, so this video is called Here's Why Mechanics Hate BMWs. Let's hear it, Scotty.
Here we got a 12-year-old BMW that isn't running right. No surprise there, it's running like crap. Check engine lights on, so let's scan it. Build scanner up to the data port, and what does it say? P0306. Cylinder number 6 misfire detected.
Alright, so in this video, Scotty is going to be repairing a misfire. A very simple thing, but because it's a BMW, it's gonna be hard. So let's hear it. By the way, just for context, he's looking at an E93 chassis 335i with the N54 engine.
Now, being a BMW, you can't see the spark plug, so we gotta take this plastic crap off. In this case, it's a 5mm hex head. We'll take these stupid things off. Oh, it makes them look so great, doesn't it? It just makes it a pain to work on. Plain stupidity, some of these designs.
The beauty cover? Okay, tell me an engine in this day and age that doesn't have a plastic beauty cover.
You gotta take half of this stuff apart to access it to get it off. Another brilliant German design. So we'll take these clips.
Wait, what? Why is he taking apart the intake? I thought he said he was chasing a misfire on cylinder number 6.
You gotta take half of this stuff apart to access it to get it off.
You're looking at the wrong half, Scotty. Alright, so for viewers who don't know, there's 3 screws right here to remove this the cabin air filter assembly, which would clear plenty of space to do what he's working on. But he knows that, right? Like, there's 3 screws right here and then 3 on the opposite side. And, you know, take them off and voila, you can see everything. It doesn't even take 5 minutes. He knows that, right?
Over here. Get this out of the way. Then we can slide the cover up and get to the spark plug.
Okay, I guess he was serious. He actually doesn't know that. Common sense just flew out the fucking window. All the points he tried to make are kind of ironically contradicted. You know, Scotty, you kind of sound like a fucking idiot.
Up here. And the number 6 is hiding way back here, so we'll check that first. And now you can see why I think so little of BMWs, modern ones. Look, all plastic crap. Plastic. Old age. Heat on the engine. And then the stupid cover on top of it to hold the heat in even more, so the plastic retains the heat and cracks even more.
You know, that's somewhat of a fair point. But do you know what you do if you're worried about that? You don't put the beauty cover back on.
Let's hope nothing breaks when we take it off, but don't be surprised if a bunch of this plastic crap starts snapping off in your hands. You'll just have to replace it then. You gotta pull the coils up. Not an easy thing to do. It's all plastic, and it may crack, and you're just gonna have to buy a new ignition coil if it does.
If this plastic stuff snaps off, well, the only thing that he's taking off, at least stuff that's relevant to the job that he's doing, are the ignition coils, which are just they're handles, and they theoretically push the cable out, but they're little handles. If you break them off, it's not the end of the world. You don't have to fucking replace the entire thing.
My trick is to get a big pry bar, start to pry them out, because they're sitting in there. There's no bolt holding them in like a better made Toyota where the coils are bolted on. These are just placed in, but that rubber and plastic Hey, it's been on there for 12 years, so it's often really hard to get off, and you'll often break stuff, but here goes nothing. We'll try some prying and praying.
Gee, I wonder why things break when I lever on it with a giant fucking screwdriver. They're literally handles. There's literally handles on them. And if you can't pull it out with just your hands, you can use a screwdriver and thread it through, and then use two hands to pull it out, or get the right angle at it. It's more or less common sense. I may have worked on BMWs a few times, but it's common sense.
Now with a ton of wiggling and prying, and then wiggling to get it off, because of course there's no working room in the back of the engine.
Scotty pries out the coil with a screwdriver blade. Then he pulls out the spark plug in the most inconvenient way possible, with a bunch of extensions.
Now even that's a chore. Not much working room, and I've had to put 3 different size extensions in.
You know, without removing the cabin air filter. And then replaces it, because he may as well after all that work.
A lot of work. Voila, finally. And as you can see here, I had to have various wiggling extensions. So I put it in with just a short one. Then when that falls in, you put this on top so you can get the socket. But then when you pull it out, it won't come out. So you got to pull it out part way, then take off that end, then get the rest with the spark plug. Now, it doesn't look horrendous, but all the work on this, I'm not taking a chance.
Scotty, you're a fucking idiot. The next tip is actually the only reasonable bit of information that he tells in this entire video. Basically flipping the coils to see if the misfire moves with it.
If the code goes to number 2, you'll know it was the coil that caused the problem in the whole place. You don't want to guess with these things. They're pretty expensive on BMWs. Have to put the air filter back on.
After he does that, he revs the shit out of a cold-ass engine to make sure that it's misfiring.
Well, here goes nothing. Well, hopefully something.
So now he plugs in his code reader. So sure enough, the misfire moves, which determines that the coil was at fault. So this time we'll drop the rear subframe, remove the passenger door, and yeah, we'll throw that number 2 coil back in, okay? Man, nothing can be easy on a BMW. Am I right? Alright, so let's make sure that the car is running good now. There's only one way I can think of how to test that. So let's go outside and rev the shit out of it when the oil's still cold once again.
It goes. No more hesitation.
So yeah, there you go. Man, the reliability on these things is just terrible. Good one, Scotty. I have no idea why it would ever be unreliable in your hands. The point to be made from this video is clear. Scotty isn't very familiar with working on BMWs. He may have a general idea from working on other cars, but clearly he doesn't touch BMWs very often. And clearly that's for good reasoning. He seems to lack even common sense. But buckle up, dumbass, because we got more of this shit to watch. Alright, this video is called People Say I'm Full of Crap About BMWs.
Yes, they are packed full of modern technology, but that's the reason I tell people not to buy these BMWs. Let's take this BMW as an example, and pretty much a sterling example of the high technology and the problems they have. This is a 2008 335i.
This is the same 335i from the last video, as you can see.
It has all the bells and whistles. It's a straight 6-cylinder engine.
I'm honestly a little surprised he didn't say straight V6 after all the stupid shit he said in the last video.
But it puts out 300 horsepower using technology. It's an inline 6 common old design. It has 2 turbochargers on it to make it have power. And if they go bad, and bad they do, the turbochargers are over $3,000 a piece, over $2,000 labor, so you're looking at over $8 grand if they go bad.
Okay, yes, he's right that the N54 turbos do tend to go bad. N54 has more problems than pretty much any other BMW out there, engine-wise at least, and I know that's going to piss people off, but it's the truth. But let's do a quick fact check on what he said. He said the 2 turbos go bad and cost over $3,000 a piece. People say I'm full of crap about BMWs. Well, watch this, because I am. He's completely wrong. All it takes is one Google search, and I wouldn't expect most of his viewers to actually look this up, but since I actually know what he's looking at, I know what to look up. N54 replacement turbos. Alright, so he's almost right on the price, but there's a big difference because it comes with 2. It comes with both of them. Both of the ones that you need. So He's telling you the false price by 2. He's 2 times wrong. Double the pride, twice the fall.
Before he met me, he said, Scotty, I thought I was getting a deal, but then every time I take it in, it's $1,000 for this, $2,000 for that.
You're gonna have to prostitute yourself on the street to replace the turbo.
Now, yes, they are maintenance-heavy vehicles. They cost a lot of money to maintain. Anybody who actually knows how to work on these has to have some extremely sophisticated equipment that costs a ton of money.
Sophisticated equipment. You know, I wonder what kind of sophisticated equipment he thinks are used at the dealership to remove the fucking number 6 coil. There's not very many sophisticated tools needed to work on BMWs in my experience, unless you consider maybe a plastic trim tool remover and an inverted Torx sophisticated. Then man, I don't know.
And as far as I'm concerned, a lot of it has to do with the overuse of plastics in these things. One of the first companies used plastic for just about everything.
His point here I can actually agree with. This generation of engines, plastic does tend to be the main culprit of failure. But let's let him talk.
With these BMWs, it doesn't matter the mileage, age destroys the plastics. Heat of the engine under the hood, the stuff cracks and comes apart. If you ever have to work on one of these when it gets to be older, this one's 12 years old now, you got to be really careful working around the engine. Because you can easily start snapping off plastic parts. They're so brittle. And then when you find these little plastic parts cost $300, $500, some of them well over $1,000 when you include labor, because you got to take half the car apart to get to them.
Excluding the cabin filter, of course. This is where he loses me, because there aren't any $1,000 plastic components around the engine bay that commonly break. The charge pipe on the car that he's showing is a common fail point, yes. But guess what? The metal upgrade is cheaper than the OEM plastic one, and it will never break. Not much research is needed to find that out.
In the case of this particular one, it's here because it's not shifting right. Now, I have equipment for this stuff. You can check variables, shifting, you can check solenoids. Most guys that have this equipment, they're paying a ton for the stuff. You're going to pay a ton to have your car worked on, and a lot of guys won't even touch it. They'll say, take it to the dealer.
He insinuates that you need an advanced code reader to be able to work on these cars, and well, it's not necessarily true, but I suppose if you're working on the transmission, maybe you do. But believe it or not, there are actually free alternatives to do everything that he's stating his scan tool does for free. But he doesn't know that because he hasn't done an ounce of research on this platform, and he wouldn't want you to know that.
And unfortunately, in the case of this one, there were no error codes for the transmission. The data was all relatively normal. So I thought, well, I know how these things are. I took a sample of the transmission fluid. Now, it's a sealed transmission, so even that was a pain in the butt. There's no dipstick. I had to go under, open up some stuff and take a sample.
Aside from the fact that it's on the car, it's not really BMW's fault because this transmission is made by a third party called ZF.
ZF transmissions were pretty good units. Under, open up some stuff and take a sample. And I took it to a good friend of mine who analyzes oil. He said that there was too much metal in the oil, meaning parts of the transmission were starting to wear out. So in this case, the occasional missed shift and stuff, hey, that's a sign of internal wear. When I checked those solenoids driving around, would activate them, they were all working, and there weren't any codes for any of them going bad. Starting to wear out.
Based on what I know about these transmissions and the information that he's giving me, I'm going to assume that the reason that this problem is happening is because the transmission fluid is low. I've got more to say about this, but I want you to listen to what he's about to say.
BMW offers what they call a fully remanufactured factory transmission. It's about $6,500. And with labor, at least at the BMW dealer, that's pretty close to what the 2 turbos cost to go. $7,000 something. You are playing with dynamite. You never know what's going to blow and when it's going to go.
So the information he's trying to convey here is that the transmission is another issue on these cars, and that the transmission is especially difficult and complex to work on. With his closing statement here, he's kind of insinuating that the transmission is a ticking time bomb and will need to be entirely replaced sooner or later, with a grand total cost of $6,500, which he compares to the price of the turbos, which I've already proven to be an exaggerated statement. His repeating argument here is that they're expensive and complex. So my countering argument is that information is key. Luckily, information is especially easy to find on BMW. BMWs, and things that pertain to BMWs like this ZF transmission. For example, if you know the absolute bare minimum of this transmission, you don't even know the full name of the transmission from the factory. If you just type in 6-speed ZF automatic transmission into YouTube, this is the first result, which contains a ton of helpful information on how to maintain this transmission and the common problems associated with it, which otherwise leave it being a very well built and strong performing transmission. Whether or not you're a mechanic who intends to do this yourself or not, it's pretty safe to say that this information was pretty easy to find. Shout out to that Shop Life channel. He's a very smart guy and he produces very informative content on subjects such as these. I recommend you check it out. But anyways, based on what I know about these transmissions, I would say that this transmission isn't on the brink of dying. It's more so just in need of some maintenance. I'm going to assume that it's low on fluid, but the argument here isn't exactly what the cause is and how we assess it, but more so the fact that information regarding BMWs and BMW stuff is not too hard to find. These cars are not as complex as he makes them out to be.
There's a module for the convertible top, fault codes. You can even read the data stream of the convertible system. We are talking uber rocket science technology, even on a convertible top system for this thing.
With these BMWs, they are just loaded and loaded with uber technology. There is just stuff everywhere between different engine controllers, boost controllers, diagnostics, and all sorts of stuff. If you ever have to service one of these BMWs, you are going to be paying a ton in microtransactions. I can't even begin to fathom how much this probably costs. So basically, the rest of the video, he's trying to convey that these cars take pretty much rocket science to understand. He says a few anecdotal things, such as he tells a story about how he had a friend who was a mechanic who bought a BMW, which he admits was more familiar with working on domestic cars. He said that he hated it and he hated working on it and it was expensive. Basically, once again, he's trying to get the message across that mechanics don't even like working on them and that they're too complex for the average Joe and that you basically need a rocket science degree to be able to service these, and otherwise it's going to cost you a lot of money to do so. Which once again, as I've shown, he's kind of in no position to be able to speak on these things. And once again, with the evidence that he shows, it kind of ties into what I was saying about word of mouth.
The problem with my friend there was he mainly worked on American cars. He didn't know that much about BMWs. I saw him about a year later, and I said, "How's that BMW working out for you?" He said, "That plastic piece of crap, I got rid of it last month. I couldn't stand it anymore. All the plastic stuff kept breaking, the parts cost a fortune, and this is a mechanic."
It's kind of ironic that the message that he's trying to convey in a lot of these videos is that you need to be a rocket scientist to be able to work on these things, or otherwise you're going to hate your life and spend a ton of money. Though, he's saying his friend knew nothing about BMWs. It's kind of weird.
Granted, he worked mainly on American cars. He liked the look of a BMW convertible and thought, "Oh, what a cool car." But, in the long run, not so cool.
In conclusion, don't let Scotty Kilmer, of all people, deter you from buying a BMW if you are thinking about buying one. The main point is BMWs are not as complex as he makes them out to be. The only thing that there is uber amounts of regarding them is information. All across the internet, there is just tons and tons of information about pretty much anything you could ever wonder about these cars, especially on the E90 3 Series generation, which he happens to be showing in the video. Unlike pretty much any other car brand, there's just so much enthusiasm and, like I said, information, very helpful information, that can teach you pretty much anything you would ever need to know. I bought these cars 3 years ago. At that time, I knew absolutely nothing about BMWs or cars in general, really. But since then, I've kind of become a self-taught mechanic just from free information on the internet. To go from absolutely zero experience to feeling very comfortable with these cars, I'd say it says a lot. And he wants you to believe that it's going to be an endless nightmare of just mysterious things that could go wrong that no one's going to want to fix, and it's just going to cost you a fortune, and they're just going to tell you, "Look, I'm sorry, but you lose. You fucking lose." These cars do not have to be serviced by BMW professionals. You do not have to bring them to the dealership to do something as simple as an oil change. These cars are not much more different than any other engine you've ever seen in your lifetime. That is what Scotty Kilmer wants you to believe, for some reason. He hates them. And that's what the BMW dealership would want you to believe too, because that's how they make their money. In the grand scheme of things, they are not more complex than your average car. There is tons and tons of information on how to do literally everything regarding that car for free on the internet. Free information. So whether or not you are going to fix it yourself or find someone else, you can find information to know whether or not you're going to get ripped off paying someone else to do it. If you like driving, BMWs will make you love driving. If you buy the car for the brand image and for the luxury, I'd say maybe pass. Because in my opinion, the luxury aspects of this car are more so the feature, whereas the true luxury is the way that they drive. So if you enjoy a car that feels nice to drive, it will probably be worth it for you. If you're on the fence and you still can't decide, don't listen to Scotty Kilmer. BMWs literally changed my life. And maybe they'll change yours too. I don't know, I don't care. Thanks for watching.
It puts out 301 horsepower. They really go. There's no arguing it. They drive fast. They handle really well. They're also great.